Welcome to Settling is Bullshit, a sweary podcast about claiming your joy. If you are an adult human craving healthier boundaries, a greater sense of purpose, or an increased capacity to feel at ease in your own skin, then you are in the right place, my friend. I'm your host, Kate Blauk, and I'm here to offer you practical tools and playful encouragement to help you step forward and be your most awesome self. My hope is that each episode will leave you feeling a bit more empowered to make brave choices and claim your joy. Hey friend, today I want to talk about the joy and discomfort of trying new things. It's especially relevant to me as I'm embarking on this glorious and terrifying journey of podcasting, which in some ways is new to me and in some ways isn't, but it's definitely an adventure that is both joyful and uncomfortable. And I was thinking about just like newness in general and learning. The two things are basically the same. And just how deeply uncomfortable it can be to be trying to do stuff and to be trying to do stuff in public, especially, and how hard that is. I have a love-hate relationship with trying new things, which, as I continue to learn more and more about my own particular flavor of neurospiciness, it makes complete sense. But even for folks with more neurotypical brains, just as a human, new stuff is inherently unsettling. Our brains are evolutionarily wired, like, to look for danger, to look for the tigers, right? And so anytime we enter a new situation, like, there's a part of our brain that's scanning for threats. And some of us have a higher tolerance for that than others. Some of us are more kind of attracted to and excited by that than others. And that makes sense too, because on a physiological level, like, there isn't a distinction between excitement and fear. On a nervous system level, those two, what is happening is the same, but our responses differ depending on our temperament, our life experience, our general brain wiring. Whether when we encounter that like sense of newness, that sense of the unknown, we tap into this sense of like, oh yay, or oh shit. And one of the things that I'm learning as I pay attention to that more and more in my life is that knowing that, right? Knowing that when I'm feeling that feeling in my body, that is the fear, excitement reaction, that if I pay more attention, if I tap in, if I say, oh, I feel that. Am I afraid? Am I excited? What choice do I want to make? That really can shape my entire experience. Mindset is going to come up a lot on this podcast, in my writing. The ways in which we get to sort of choose or shape our own experience by really tuning into, what are my thought patterns? What's my narrative about this particular experience? And we're also going to talk a lot about how stuff shows up in the body and bringing those two things together. In my own journey in recent years, I've been learning a lot more about the nervous system. I've been learning how to pay more attention to my nervous system and the kind of wisdom and value that that offers when I'm paying attention. And oh, sweet baby Jesus, it is hard to pay attention. None of us got taught how to, I didn't get taught until I was in my late 30s how to pay attention to the sensations in my body. Not really. Obviously, if you are into yoga, if you've been into yoga for a long time, if you've been into meditation for a long time, maybe this is familiar to you. But even as someone who has been meditating pretty regularly for the last 10 years, the sort of body scan, noticing, for me, has largely only ever happened in that space. When I'm sitting and paying attention to my breathing, paying attention to my body for 5, 10, 3 minutes at a time, that has been the space for that. And so it's been a big growth and practice for me to step into checking in with my whole system on a more regular basis. And that comes up a lot for me and has been a really helpful practice for me as I'm leaning into this new frontier of literally putting my voice out in the world, which is relatively new to me. And it's so hard, you guys, you gals, you humans. It's so vulnerable to put stuff out there creatively. And it's also so exciting, right? But like that spectrum of excitement and terror really fluctuates from day to day. And that I think one of the ideas that I'm wanting to explore in this particular episode is just like how much growth and expansion and yumminess is available when I step forward into new shit. Newness is where growth lives. Newness is where expansion lives. And newness is always an opportunity to learn something about myself or a skill or a tool or what have you. And it's a huge and important and fundamental part of getting unstuck, of not settling in our lives, in whatever kind of area that we are settling. There's a saying that I hear every so often in recovery that's like silly and trite and a little bit eye rolly, but it's also so helpful to me sometimes, which is that if nothing changes, nothing changes. Right? That if we want different things for ourselves, we have to do something different. And different often means new. And I, in this moment, even just find it so helpful to just hear the reminder, to hear myself offer you the reminder that it's normal and natural and understandable to find new shit deeply uncomfortable. That there's nothing wrong with me for being uncomfortable, that I'm not doing it wrong just because I'm uncomfortable, that the discomfort is actually a sign that I'm doing something new and different and potentially really valuable and rewarding. But it can be so hard to take that first step, especially the first like big step. Recording the first podcast was this ridiculously, I mean, not no, like I'm going to be nice to myself. It was not ridiculous that I had a hard time with that I needed to like cuddle up with my squishmallow and push myself to do it because it was new, because it was vulnerable, because the internet is full of mean people. So, of course, I was a little nervous. And because I care about this a lot. You know, I really want this to be amazing. And one of the great, big, beautiful lessons that I'm learning right now and that I'm modeling here, and that it's important to me to model here, is that we have to start somewhere on the journey of great, big, amazing things and combating perfectionism, combating a fixed mindset, combating all of the shit that gets in the way of me being my most awesome self and you being your most awesome self can stop us from getting started if we're not willing to like fuck around and do the best we can with the awareness that it's going to get better eventually. Right? As much as I want this podcast to be perfect and amazing and awesome right out the gate, which, you know, let's be fair, in some ways I do think it is. Like I am having a great time doing this. And also, it's been fucking terrible and exhausting because it turns out there's a lot that goes into starting a podcast, everybody. If you didn't know that, there is. And I'm super excited for where this podcast is going to take me. But if I were to let the discomfort of not having it perfectly figured out, of not having my ideas beautifully, amazingly mapped out and sorted, because that's not my style, if I let that stop me, like nothing's ever gonna happen. And like I know a year from now, I'm gonna like listen to this episode again and have plenty of things that I hear in it that I'm like, "Oh, I would do that differently." But I can't find that out unless I do it. Oh my gosh, right? That, like, I can't learn things unless I practice. And my invitation to myself and to you is to start treating life a bit more like a practice. We talk about meditation practice, we talk about yoga practice in the kind of more mindful spaces. I feel like this idea is pretty prevalent, but I think there's just so much more ease and so much more exploration and curiosity when I adopt the mindset that it's all just practice. And when I step into new things, whether it's a new hobby, whether it's a new skill I'm learning at work, whether it's a new skill I'm learning in my relationships, right? A new way of communicating, a new way of setting healthy boundaries. It's fundamentally going to be uncomfortable because it's new. That discomfort is the companion of newness, and that I get to choose how I relate to that. Sort of, sometimes, right? I can also often, like, get caught up in the, like, "Oh my god, this is so uncomfortable. I hate it." And that certainly used to be the case for me for a lot of my life. If I wasn't like, instantly good at something, I would just stop. And I also wanna be clear that I don't believe in constantly chasing the new. I am someone who really enjoys a lot of variety, but I suppose, especially as I'm getting older, as I'm now in my 40s, I think somewhat understandably, I am finding a bit more balance between the familiar, like the comfortable, the routine, the familiar, and the new. That in all balance in all things, right? But I think regardless of where you fall on the spectrum of I have my routines, I like doing the same thing versus like, oh my God, I want new stuff all the time. I encourage both of us to really look at the value in both of those aspects. And that if you're listening to this podcast, right, if you are someone who is interested in personal development, self-improvement, thinking about how to be a bigger, better, cooler human in the world, right? If you're here, then there's part of you that wants something more. And finding that something more, exploring that something more entails leaning into or adopting or picking up a little bit of something new. And I really want all of us to explore the joy that can be found in newness, the delight, the surprise, the wonder. What if newness were a treat we gave ourselves? I'm trying on that perspective right now as I think about this podcast, that this is a treat. This is a delight. This is a joyful little moment, a yummy opportunity to dive off of a new cliff or a new that actually sounds terrible. I don't want to dive off the cliff. Let's find a better metaphor there. um to float up into a hot air balloon and get a new perspective. I'm going to keep doing this podcast. That's a fact. And so the more I do it and the more comfortable I get with the process, the more comfortable I get with my own voice, the more comfortable I get sharing things with you, my lovely, beautiful, marvelous, sparkly listener, the more fun I'm going to have. I do like roller coasters, and it is a bit like roller coaster, right? The initial phases of new stuff is going up that goddamn hill and like kind of wanting to throw up and being like, "Oh no, oh my god, what am I doing? Why did I do this? This was a terrible idea." And then you get over the hill and it's like, "Oh shit, we're doing it, and this is amazing, and oh my gosh." And it doesn't have to be that extreme. It doesn't have to be that level of terror inducing, of falling. Although if I think about it, like there is something to the language that we use in terms of like leaps of faith, taking the leap, that I do think like really captures that sense of terror and excitement that can happen. And so here we are. You are on this flying leap with me, and I'm super stoked. And I'm choosing to adopt the mindset that I don't have to do this perfectly. That you, my lovely, beautiful, sparkly, wonderful listener, is here because you want to hear me being human and hear me being vulnerable and hear my guests that are coming up talk about the stuff that is real for them in ways that are not super rehearsed or polished, but real. And that the people who want something different can go find something different. There are so many fucking different podcasts out there. Harkening back to the comparison is the thief of joy episode, right? It's so easy as I'm starting this new adventure to be like, oh my God, there's so many other things. How does this possibly matter? There are so many other podcasts. There are so many other blogs. There's so many other people. La 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 la. But fuck it. Fuckity fuck it. You know, I'm doing this for you and for me, my friend. Not all the other people's. You're here. I appreciate you. And my invitation to you as I wind up this episode, my invitation is to like pick something this week, today. Like pick something new to treat yourself to. And to really like look at it as a treat. And you know, you can pick something that is a literal treat, right? Go to a new bakery, go to a new restaurant, eat something yummy, or treat yourself to a new skill you want to learn, a new experience you want to have, a new way of being in relationship, a new way of setting boundaries, a new way of talking to yourself. If you have a really mean inner critic, like my invitation is to try on some new affirmations, to do the uncomfortable and awkward and icky thing of looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I am loved. I am beautiful. I am valued. And notice what shows up in your body. Notice how that shifts how you feel. Or if you want to try on a really fun one, say, I am fucking awesome. Because you are fucking awesome. You are. I don't know which of you is listening to this, but you are fucking awesome. You bring beautiful and amazing things to this world, and I am glad you exist. So there's a new little affirmation for you. And if it feels really uncomfortable, tap into that and decide that discomfort is fun, that it's exciting, that it's an opportunity to step into something big and new and cool for yourself. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please help me grow the podcast by subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with anyone you think would benefit from hearing it too. Your support means the world to me. If you'd like to get updates about new episodes, posts, and offerings, please visit settlingisbullshit.com to subscribe to my newsletter. You can also find information there about working with me one-on-one to build your most amazing life. Until next time, remember that I believe in you and that you are fucking awesome.